So, it all kicks off with a bit of history. The states that used to make up Yugoslavia have been going at it for a decade. Chaos, violence, you name it. Things got so bad that NATO and the US stepped in, bombing a couple of those countries just to put an end to the madness. But the aftermath? A bunch of criminals and mobsters roaming free, while intelligence agencies around the globe are scrambling to track them down. The story introduces Philip, who's just hopped into his car. Quick flashbacks show us how he had a serious showdown with some thugs in a hospital. Enter Suzanne, a doctor being grilled by FBI agents about what went down there. When one of them shows her Philip's photo, she explains that she first met him at the hospital. Apparently, he saved her life during the chaos. She assumes he's dead now, which confuses the agents because out of everyone at the hospital, patients, staff, you name it, she's the only one who survived. Here's the kicker. The hospital's database is toast, so the FBI can't even verify if Suzanne's really a doctor. Naturally, they suspect she might be in cahoots with the bad guys. Flashback time. 2 ambulances roll up at the hospital, carrying people injured in a shootout. Among them is Philip, sporting some nasty wounds on his arm and head. Suzanne is assigned to patch him up. Meanwhile, the FBI tells Suzanne about 2 dangerous mercenaries, Radovan and Zoran. Brothers who'll kill anyone if the price is right. We even get a glimpse of their dirty work. Back in 1999 in Bosnia, they executed hostages and were later attacked by civilians seeking revenge for their loved ones. Back to the present. The FBI finds it super odd that Suzanne survived a run-in with these 2 pros. Flashback again, and we see Radovan storming the hospital with a gun, scaring everyone by firing into the air. He finds Zoran's body, realizes his brother's been killed, and swears revenge. Radovan goes on a killing spree, while Suzanne is caught in the chaos. He grabs her, demanding she take him to Philip, but before anything happens, Philip shows up. Cue a massive gunfight. Badly injured and out of ammo, Philip makes a run for it with Suzanne in tow. She wants to stay behind, but when Philip collapses, she decides to help him, tending to his wounds. Just when things can't get worse, Klaus, the leader of this criminal gang, arrives with his crew. Radovan informs Klaus that Philip slipped away, and Klaus orders them to hunt him down. Meanwhile, the FBI digs deeper into the case. They get photos of a minister and his bodyguards, discovering that Klaus and his gang were actually part of the minister's security team. Now we're introduced to the gang members. Dusan, who's a beast in hand-to-hand combat. Almira, who uses her charm to manipulate and kill. And Ivan, a loyal Russian mercenary. Back at the hospital, the trio splits up to find Philip. He and Suzanne are hiding in a lab where she continues to treat his injuries. Philip spills some backstory. Turns out he used to work with these mercenaries. Flashback to Los Angeles, 6 months earlier. Philip and the gang were hired to protect a minister meeting a mob boss. Things went sideways fast. One of the bodyguards, Zoran, pulled out a gun and started shooting everyone. Philip ended up fighting Zoran, getting injured in the process, but eventually killed him. Back to the hospital, Philip tells Suzanne he needs to reach the 6th floor to find the minister. She agrees to help him. In the present, the FBI speculates that Philip is a mercenary. Suzanne denies knowing this, emphasizing that he saved her life. The agents then dive into Philip's past. He was born in the former Yugoslavia, where his father, a politician against the war, was constantly threatened. One day, enemies murdered his father right in front of him. That traumatic event turned Philip into the hardened man he is now. At the hospital, Philip and Suzanne sneak into the hallway on their way to the 6th floor. Suddenly, Dusan appears, pretending to surrender. He throws a knife at Philip, but Philip dodges it, and the two engage in a brutal fight. Philip ends up killing Dusan by stabbing him, and Klaus, unaware of this, keeps trying to contact Dusan. Philip and Suzanne continue their climb to the 6th floor. Exhausted and wounded, Philip collapses, and Suzanne does her best to help him. Klaus calls Radovan, telling him he's on his way. Philip confesses to Suzanne that he wants to survive this and meet her properly once it's all over. She reassures him that they'll get out alive. Klaus and Radovan, meanwhile, search the hospital room by room. When they spot blood on the floor, they realize they're close to their target. Philip and Suzanne, aware of the danger, quickly make their escape. While Philip and Suzanne hide in a cramped room, Radovan keeps looking for them, but comes up empty. Klaus, not one to give up easily, orders the other 2 goons to head down to the 3rd floor and continue the hunt. Meanwhile, during the FBI interrogation, the agent receives Suzanne's file. To verify her identity, the agent asks her a couple of personal questions and cross-checks her answers with the dossier. She answers correctly, but the agent stumbles upon a detail. Suzanne had been arrested in the past. She admits that she nearly killed her ex because he tried to attack her. Oh, and surprise! She casually reveals she's got a black belt in Aikido, leaving the agent stunned. Thinking the coast is clear, Suzanne and Philip step out into the hallway. But their luck runs out when they bump into Ivan. Philip tells Suzanne to hide while he takes on Ivan. As the fight begins, Ivan radios Almira, who shows up and corners Suzanne. Almira smugly taunts her, saying Philip will lose to Ivan because he always does. While the men are locked in combat, Suzanne and Almira throw down too. Suzanne fights back fiercely, managing to overpower Almira. In a bold move, she grabs a wire and strangles Almira, killing her. At the same time, Philip gets the upper hand on Ivan and snaps his neck. He rushes back to Suzanne and finds her shaken but alive. She admits she needs a moment to catch her breath. This whole situation is way out of her comfort zone. Philip, however, has no time to waste. He insists they need to push forward to the 6th floor before Klaus and Radovan catch up. Stopping now would be a death sentence for her. Suzanne, stubborn as ever, decides to leave the hospital alone despite his warnings. At this point, the scene flashes back to Philip's childhood. Little Philip watches as his mother hurriedly packs her bags. After her husband's murder, their enemies are after her, too. With no papers and no way out of the country, her only option is to help Philip escape on his own. She tells him to stay strong and never forget her. The heartbreaking farewell leaves Philip with a sense of déjà vu as Suzanne walks away from him now, much like his mother did back then. Philip's backstory unfolds further. The man responsible for his father's death is Dmitri, a former Bosnian minister. Philip's mother had always warned him that Dmitri was an enemy of the people. Ever since, Philip has made it his life's mission to take Dmitri down. After his mother's death, Philip's uncle took him in and trained him in martial arts, weapon handling, and survival tactics. Over the years, Philip became highly skilled. Eventually, he changed his name and infiltrated Dmitri's inner circle to get close enough for revenge. A flashback shows Philip proving his worth by defeating a man in combat while Klaus, Dmitri, and their gang look on. Impressed, Klaus welcomes him into their criminal organization, the Black Hand, and Dusan brands him with a mark on his chest. The FBI agents explain to Susan that Philip joined the gang only to take out Dmitri and avenge his father's death. They recount what happened at the hotel 6 months earlier. Dmitri had been meeting with a Mexican mob boss to plan his escape from Ecuador to Venezuela, hoping to avoid prosecution for his war crimes. Philip learned about this and seized the opportunity. Armed with a rifle, he managed to shoot Dmitri and another henchman, but someone hit Philip from behind. Though injured, Philip killed his attacker before collapsing from a head wound. It becomes clear that Philip's current mission is to reach the 6th floor and finish what he started, eliminating Dmitri for good. The FBI agents try to convince Suzanne that she made the right call by leaving Philip behind, but she surprises them by admitting she didn't actually abandon him. On her way out, she heard noises and decided to go back. On the 5th floor, she stumbled upon a grisly scene, bodies everywhere. These were Dmitri's bodyguards, all killed by Philip. As Suzanne wanders the hallway, Radovan rushes onto the 5th floor, and Philip finally makes it to the 6th floor, where Dmitri is still alive. Dmitri, injured and desperate, begs Philip for help, clueless about who shot him. Philip doesn't hesitate. He points his gun at Dmitri and tells him he's the one who murdered his father. Without another word, he shoots Dmitri multiple times, finally avenging his father's death. Suzanne hears the gunshots, but doesn't witness the killing. After taking down Dmitri, Philip tries to make his escape, but is confronted by Radovan. The two engage in a brutal fight. Klaus arrives, but ends up taking a knife wound below the belt, leaving him incapacitated. Philip keeps battling Radovan, and the fight moves to the rooftop. Meanwhile, Klaus finds Suzanne and attacks her. He tries to strangle her, but she grabs a pair of scissors and stabs him repeatedly in the neck, killing him. The police arrive and storm the hospital, but Philip manages to overpower Radovan on the roof. In a final move, he breaks Radovan's neck and escapes before the cops can catch him. Suzanne's story ends with her being released after the interrogation. The scene shifts to Philip, battered and exhausted, climbing into his car and driving off. He watches from a distance as Suzanne is escorted out of the hospital by the police. Later, the FBI agents dig into the hospital's database and uncover a shocking truth. Suzanne isn't a real doctor. She had killed the actual doctor and stolen her uniform. It's also revealed that Suzanne had been working with Philip all along. Even one of the FBI agents had secretly teamed up with them to eliminate Dimitri. The story wraps up with Philip and Suzanne driving off together, leaving behind a trail of chaos and vengeance. If you like this recap, don't forget to hit the like button. And hey, if you didn't, go ahead and smash that dislike button twice just to be sure. Better yet, check out the full movie. It's worth a watch. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.